One of the things you need to think about as well when you're going on a retreat is that you need to be intentional about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And I'm taking the opportunity to spend a bit of time with my family. And while I'm there, I'm also going to be recording some family history and just doing interviews with people who are close to me, like my parents, my grandmother, to hear their version of what they can remember about their life. I don't like the idea of sleeping on the ground when there are lions around. No fences.
Well, as it turned out, we all came out of it alive.
Yes.
Only just though. The memory that will always stay with me was trying to find our camping site that was booked. And of course then at the gate we had a problem because you paid for the booking but not for the conservation fee, which was about 3 times what the booking cost.
Yeah, I initially went into that thinking that the fees were paid up front, but it was only a deposit. So when we got to the gate, there was a balance of payment to be made, which is quite significant.
That was substantial.
Yeah.
And they didn't take credit cards.
So I think you bailed us out there.
Yeah, I did.
Thank goodness we took you along.
Yeah, fortunately I had some traveller's checks left over from a trip to the UK, pound traveller's checks. And the end result was we had to drive back to Maun to go to a bank to cash the traveller's checks so that we could pay in cash. Memory that sticks in my mind is setting up the Kadak dry on the top with the pan and busy cooking breakfast on top of the carrier. And a couple of buffalo arrived and a couple more, and they started milling around, and by the time we were eating, we were completely surrounded and locked in by buffalo. A massive herd of buffalo.
Oh, it was huge.
I think it's around about that time that we made the decision that we wouldn't do the Zim Big Falls trip.
Well, there's a story behind that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because we woke up one morning and the car wouldn't start.
Oh, goodness me, yes. Oh.
So, brand new Landy, paid 205,000 for it, and the bloody thing wouldn't start in the middle of the Okavango Delta.
It was. And I'd recently read a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And I thought, well, let me take a page out of that lesson. And let's start at the basics. What is the problem? And hit it fairly lucky because there was no earth going through. And at the end of it, we eventually got it started. But anyway, then we arrived in Savuti. Wow.
Oh, Savuti's amazing.
Fantastic. I thought, okay, where do we get water? And they've got these concrete cairns, almost like a pyramid with the point cut off. And I looked at it, and they've got like 110 mil pipe that you've got to put your hand in to turn the tap on to get water, and the water comes out of a pipe that's cut flush with the slope of the cairn. And thought, oh, you know what? We're going to need water to wash dishes and things. So I thought it was bloody clever. We had a round dish.
Plastic washing up dish.
Washing up dish, yeah, probably held about 15 litres. And I thought, right, let me fill this up. And I filled it up and put it inside my tent on the ground sheet. And it wasn't too long and elephant walked in, smelt the water, obviously, put his trunk in the opening of the tent, and drank the 15 litres of bloody water. I tell you what. And then when it was finished, picked the dish up and threw the dish away. And then, obviously, highly upset, picked the tent up with my kit bag that I had my clothing and toiletries and stuff in, and threw the tent out. So uprooted that. And then realizing there was no more water, he decided to
Stomped off in a
huff.
Yeah.
To tell you what my dad was like, he was very tall like you. I think he was about six foot like you. And he was very thin, and he'd been through the war. Of course, he was very injured with shrapnel in his head at the Battle of Gallipoli. He said, you know, it was a trap. And I've heard Churchill speaking in a film once. He said they thought these guys would go in and smash the Germans, but it was a trap. And Churchill played hell after the war because they were all hiding. Our poor buggers we had a big picture over my bed, a copy of the boat in Gallipoli. It was the Dardanelles, wasn't it? In Turkey, I think it is, Gallipoli. And you see this big boat and all these little figures jumping down to get, and as they got down they were shot to pieces. And my dad had, it blew up by him, he had a big lump of shrapnel here, and his wrist and his head. And they took him to the, when they dragged him back, I mean they put him on a sort of a stretcher, and there were hundreds that were killed. And it was a trap, and I mean, we lost so many men, and he was lucky to be alive, actually. So he got back into a tent. There was no operating place, and they said, there's no way we can touch this. There's no way. It's been near the brain. He said, just stitch the back up. He had it there till he died. Never affected him, though, you know.
Yeah, that's quite surprising.
Yeah. You know, I used to do the same. Daddy, what's this lump on the back of your head? And he'd say, it's shrapnel. I didn't even know what shrapnel was. Yeah. He was wounded twice. And you know, he wouldn't take a rank. They kept saying, I want to give him commission. He was such a clever guy. Of course, he was very wealthy. He grew up in money. He went to private school. He learned French, everything. His mum, the Lewis Stables of Monmouth, I think the Lewis is a long memory for me because they've been there for donkey's years. They bred racehorses, and they also bred these bloody ponies that went into the mines to smell the gas, which I think was so cruel, because those ponies were killed with the gas. Yeah. Don't you think that was terrible? I mean, when I grew up, I thought it was a shocking story.
So that was the
it's like putting a bird.
To a
here, they
canary.
put a bird in a cage, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, as I say, my mum grew up on the poor side of town with nothing, one of 8 girls, and they had nothing. And when my dad came back from the war, he met her somehow, and he fell in love with her, and every night he'd go and see her. And one night, my grandpa said to him, Frank, you know, you're a very nice guy. You cannot come every night. You can visit Blanche twice a week. Is that okay? Okay. And of course he married her because he wanted to see her every night.
You were at school during the war, weren't you?
Yeah, terrible. You know what? We had gas masks in a bloody box, and as you ran, it bumped on you. So my dad, my darling dad, bought me, he had it made. It was a lovely plastic shape. You could push it down and have a shoulder strap. I showed off at school. Everyone said, I want one, I want one. I said, no, my father makes them, you can't have one. And you know, when the air raid warning went, I mean, look, I was 8 when it started.
Yeah.
And we ran around the road with flags and saying, oh, war's declared. We thought it was fabulous. Bloody idiots. War's declared. Little flags. My God. When the Germans started coming over, you see, our problem was Hereford, you know Hereford, was it's not far from Monmouth, and Gloucester's not far, and Chepstow is not far. Chepstow's on the Welsh border. Hereford was 18 miles away, and there was an RAF base there. So they were trying to bomb that. So when they didn't get there, we got the bloody fallout in Monmouth. The first night we had an air raid, our poor cat ran out and he never came back.
Aww.
And my poor mum was broken-hearted. She said, I will never have another cat, ever. And she didn't. And what happened was, once we realised we thought it was great. War was declared like idiots. Once the bombs started falling, we were terrified. And the air raid warning, well, whoa, and you think, oh my God, get your gas mask. Teacher would say, listen, gas mask, lunch, leave everything on the desk. If it gets bombed, it's too bad, we'll buy new pencils and pens, don't worry. So the air raid warning would go, and Miss Stagg, the bookkeeping teacher, said to me, Kim, you and 4 others, you're the senior, get those 4 kids, and as it happens, out of school, down the road, down to my house, go down in the Anderson shelter under the house. Well, you sat in this bloody freezing concrete, and you had to wait and wait for the all clear signal. The air raid warning was whoa, and the air raid signal was a clear signal, and you knew you'd get up and go back to school. But I mean, it was interrupted, And then our lovely church where your mum was christened, where you sat on that. Remember you sat there when you came to Aunt Enid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what happened there? A blast from where it fell somewhere blew all the stained glass window out.
Oh.
That's the only damage it did. And of course, when Mum and I went in 81, it was 800 years old then, that church, and that was 81.
So my mum has said that she's going to show me how she does her mince, which is going to be an education for me, because I've got my way of doing it, and of course my mum's done a lot of cooking and I'd like to learn from her. So I see she's done quite a bit of preparation already. Chopped up things. With a grater. That's a good idea. So you grated the veggies?
I did, because it's actually better if it's much easier just to chop them up. And I also want to just show you how I do my onion. I've done that. I grated the veggies because it was easier instead of sitting there and chopping them into little tiny squares. And also, if your kids don't like vegetables, if you put baby marrow in, they don't even know that it's there.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Then they don't know, but you've got vegetables in there.
Yeah. What I sometimes do with the veggies like that is I will puree them and then mix it in into the sauce.
Yeah. I haven't got fresh garlic at the moment, so I've always got instant on hand.
Yeah, running out of garlic is a pain. Is there a fan on that induction plate?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you haven't got gas, this is the next best thing. Teaspoon of stock, beef stock. Might be a little bit more because I had more mince. Soya sauce, my secret ingredient. But the most important thing is to taste it now. It must taste nice now before you cook it for the next hour and a half, and it reduces down. If it doesn't have the flavor now, you're not going to invent the flavor later. Taste that. See if you think it's tasty enough.
These are different
gonna
flavours
put
to the
a-
ones I'm used to.
Now we're going to leave it, and it's going to simmer for the next hour and a half. And you see what it looks like now,
Yeah.
and then you'll see the difference when it's really cooked into this lovely flavor and gravy and everything.
And when does the rosemary go?
I'm going to get it now. Should have been here. I'm going to put it in now.
Looks good. Oh, look at that. It looks amazing. I can see how the beef is softened up.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's very impressive.